Hey everybody, it's Trinity from the Divine Path LLC and Moonstone Mystics here for another 12-step tarot reading. And today we're going to be talking about step 1. The big one. The one you have to do perfectly. The rest of them, we're a little flexible on how you go about doing it. But the first one is the one you have to get perfect. Especially when you're trying to detach from something that's not good for you or something that's killing you. It's really important, like really, really important. Probably the most important step you'll ever take, because it's a step that is of clarity and of understanding. All right, so on the split, I've got the Four of Swords and I've got the Ace of Pentacles. So let's go ahead and get into this. I'm going to call upon my higher power, as I understand it, to give us clarity and focus for the greater good on what step 1 entails. Why are we doing it? What's the T on step 1? And this one, and this one. All right. So I got 3 cards from the Keymaster Tarot. We're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So the Five of Wands. This is about the battle of the ego. Okay? And if there would be a card talking about the thing that we need to give up, that's definitely it. We've got the Seven of Cups, which is about choice. And we've got the Three of Wands, which is all about planning and preparation. So if you're in a 12-step program, specifically if you're talking about substance use disorder and making the decision that you definitely are an alcoholic or an addict, which if you don't know me yet, and this is your first time here, welcome. But I certainly am. If you're coming back, welcome back. So glad to have you here. But I personally am an alcoholic and an addict, and that's something that I have been in recovery for the last 4 years. And that first step was really hard. It took me actually a couple of years to finally get my head wrapped around the fact that I was an alcoholic and I had a problem. Okay? So why was it so hard? Well, this card really talks about it. It's that ego, like, oh, I can have one. Everybody else has one. I've had a hard day at work. I deserve it. I can hide it from other people. It's all of those, justifications that we come up with on why it's okay that we can continue using the substance that we use. Now, you can also apply this to people, places, and things, principles and belief systems that also you're powerless over. But the first step in detaching from anything is truly to understand that you're powerless over it. It has taken complete control of your life. It has given you no choice. So what does that look like? Let's go ahead and ask for some clarification on that Five of Wands. Okay. What does it look like when we are powerless? Spirit. What does it look like? And, oh, 2 more. Okay. All right. So I've got the Emperor here, and it's talking about control. We think that we can control our use, our beliefs, our ego. It's all about willpower. And giving that up can be really, really hard, especially to some, ether that's invisible around us, and we're being asked to give up something and replace it with something we can't see, touch, or smell. And that's really a difficult, challenging thing, and it takes a huge act of faith. You have to be at rock bottom in order to get to that point where you are willing to do anything to stop doing what you're doing to yourself. And take that leap of faith. The Fool. Our next is the Two of Wands. If you're anything like I am, when I was using and drinking, because I not only had a wicked alcohol problem, but I also had a wicked Adderall addiction as well. I typically stay on the lighter side of my addiction, and it's been a while since I've done either one of those two things. But it was something where I would plan out and plot all of these different ways that I could stop, without having to go and start doing the 12-step program because I freaking hated it. I did not want to walk into the rooms. I was like, spiritual malady? What are you talking about? I read tarot. I do all of these things. I believe in God, and so I actually was, let's just put it bluntly, I was really butthurt that somebody was telling me that I was not spiritually aligned. And for me, that's what worked, was getting into the 12 steps, surrendering the control that I was trying to have. And it just, it was a miserable way of living. I was not making good decisions for myself. And everything around me was triggering me. So, I really had to set out and take that leap of faith and start planning what I was going to be doing next, which is this Two of Wands. And what that looked like was going to 90 meetings in 90 days. It looked like getting a sponsor and working steps with them, because I was going to meetings for a while, and I started hearing things that really made a lot of sense to me. Something, people would be sharing about their early days and when they had quit, and it really resonated with me, and I wanted what they had, and quite frankly, I was willing to go to any lengths to get what they had. But that took a lot of courage on my part. So if you are on here and you are trying to decide whether you are an alcoholic or an addict or a codependent, or perhaps you have a sex addiction, all of those things apply, and all of those things can be, I'm not going to say that they can be cured, because they can't be. Once you have altered your brain, which is what happens when we actually will cause brain damage, physical brain damage. We're killing off neuropathways in our mind, or in our brain, our physical brain. And stopping using is the only way to start to repair any damage. Now, you can't get those neural pathways back. That's physically impossible, but you can grow new ones. It does take about 14 months of abstinence to grow those new ones. But I tell you what, once you've done that altering of your brain, the physical damage that's been done, you will always have that physical damage, and your brain will always revert back to the trauma response that it has. So let's go ahead and turn over this. This fourth card is the Knight of Swords. The actions that we need to take. So when we are first learning about recovery and learning about what it takes, I think personally it's really, really helpful to talk about what that looks like within the brain. And so if you've got, let's just take this right here. This is your brain stem. This is your brain. Right down here is the dog brain, or the reptilian brain. It's the yes or no part of it. This is your prefrontal cortex, and that is the part of the brain that is in charge of executive function. When we give into this dog part of the brain, and we are triggered and we make the decision to use again, this part of the brain kind of goes crazy, okay? And you will literally start, your brain will shut off, that part of the brain. It just completely, nope, we're not going to remember this. That's an explanation for blackouts. It's because your brain has been through so much trauma that you truly cannot function while you're using, and your brain is trying to prevent you from remembering the trauma that's going on. So it's really important to stay abstinent for the rest of your life. Um, let's go ahead and clarify the next card, which is the Seven of Cups, which is all about choice, the choices that we have. Once you make the decision to go ahead and admit that you are suffering from alcoholism or addiction or substance use disorder or an addiction of any kind. It can be to people. It really, really can. I've had to 12-step myself off of certain people that I was addicted to. And there's no shame in that. A lot of people do that, especially when you are dealing with abusive situations like trauma bonds, specifically narcissistic abuse. Those are really things that are tough to get out of, situations that are really tough to get out of, because we are addicted to those people. We are addicted to the trauma. We are addicted to the anxiety. Let's go ahead and pull some cards on that Seven of Cups, the choice. So we have a choice in how we can go about healing. There is more than one path to recovery. I know that a lot of 12-steppers will say, oh, that's the easier, softer way. I humbly disagree. I know several people who go to Smart Recovery. I know several people who use non-traditional 12-step programs, such as Pagans in Recovery, which is a great program. I highly recommend. Recovery Dharma is another one, so long as you are following the steps within the book with a wise guide. It's a little bit different philosophy. The 12 steps, you go one step at a time, and that is what worked for me. I really do highly recommend a 12-step program in that regard, the traditional 12-step. But, Recovery Dharma, it's the 12 spokes of a wheel, and so everything needs to be in balance. So it doesn't necessarily have to be done one step at a time in that order. Let's see, there's Smart Recovery, there's Celebrate Recovery, which is basically traditional 12-step, but you put Jesus in there as your higher power. For those of us who who do identify as Christian, that's actually a really good program. And you get with some like-minded people. The traditional anonymous programs, the entire point is that a lot of us have, the reason why we're spiritually misaligned is because we have religious trauma in our past. And so we may be really uncomfortable with the God word. And that's okay. That's totally okay. Your higher power is of your own understanding. No one can tell you what the heck that looks like. All right, so those choices. So that's one part of the choice that you have to make. You can go to rehab facilities. I did. IOP programs, sober living, a combination of all of those, which is what I did. But I have found helpful information through every single avenue that I've looked at. What got me sober was the community within the 12-step program that I attended. Okay, so the choice to walk away from the behavior, that's really the key. Finding out what type of, what is the mechanism behind the behavior? Why are you exhibiting that behavior? For those of you who have followed me or know me in person, I am a behavioral professional. And so any living thing behaves, and there are 4 reasons for why that person or being is behaving. Number 1, they have a want, they have a desire. Typically it's to satisfy a need that they have, like you eat, and that's a behavior because you're hungry. But you want something, so that's one example. The second one, you want attention. The third, you want a sensory stimulation. So like think people who are on the spectrum, which I am one, proud to be, but people who are on the spectrum who, or babies, quite frankly, where they want really, really soft things to touch, or something with texture to touch, or they have the fidget spinners. That's sensory. So think that's another reason for behavior. And then the last one is escape. So I highly recommend going through and figuring out why you are behaving in that way, why you are making that choice. What do you want out of the deal? What is the reason behind the behavior, so that you can change that choice in response to the behavior that you're doing and walk away from the actual use. So that's the Eight of Cups. The next one is the Sun, but it did come out into the reverse. And so investigating what lies we're telling ourselves, and turning this in the upright and being really, really honest and candid. That is a choice that we make when we come into the program. And a really important one, too, is to be very, very candid and honest about where we're at and what we're going through. And as we align ourselves with people who have gone through the same thing, and there are millions of people who have gone through the same thing and recovered and live very prosperous, thriving lives. There is hope. There definitely is hope. There is such a wonderful experience in life after you get into recovery and are sober for a while. And then the third one is the choice to love yourself. The Queen of Cups. So those are the choices: to walk away, to be honest, and to start to learn to love yourself. And that goes beyond how you go about doing that. Those are the three goals in those choices. That's what we want to see out of the choices that we're making. Because clearly the choices we've been making up to this point, when we are admitting that we are powerless over something, have not been good ones. All right. So last and not the least in the slightest, let's go ahead and look at the Three of Wands, which is all about planning, waiting for your ships to come in. You've got a game plan. If you are coming into the 12 steps, that's already been laid out for you. You don't even have to make a choice as to how you're going to be going about doing that. And that's the nice thing about it, is the fact that people have walked the path ahead of you. And that's for Smart Recovery too. And for Recovery Dharma, or any one of the organized programs that are out there. The thing I like about 12-step programs and other, like Dharma and Smart, is the fact that they're not professionally organized, and really they strive to be as least organized as possible. And that way they keep their motive in an ethical means. They're just trying to help other people get sober. And, when you get into treatment facilities and stuff, that's really all about the cha-ching. And so then you get ethical dilemmas, where you have things like the Florida Shuffle. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's scary. Avoid it at all costs. And that is certainly not isolated to Florida. I've heard that North Carolina is pretty bad about that too, but it's something that we need to be aware of. There are scoundrels out there who will take advantage of people who are trying to get into recovery. And I hate that. That's a huge reason why I do this for free, and I put this out here. This is part of my service work. It helps keep me sober. It really, really does. On top of going to meetings and sponsoring other women, this is what I do. All right. So let's go ahead and clarify the Three of Wands. Ooh, that one came out, but it popped back in and I can't find it. So it'll come out again if it needs to. All right. Okay, so out pops out the Ace of Pentacles, which was on the split. So this is your golden opportunity. This is your golden ticket to changing your life for the better in a demonstrable fashion. This is something that, once you make this decision, you're going to start seeing results. The harder you work it, the better and more obvious the results will be. So make sure that you're very willing and very thorough. And if you can't seem to muster up the willingness, I highly recommend praying for it. I know that it sounds silly, especially to people who don't believe in a God or a higher power, but just trust me, it really does work. There have been a lot of things that I have been very unwilling to do, and just saying, hey, higher power, can you help me with this willingness thing, because I'm really struggling. For some reason, just saying something like that, and it may take a couple of days before you start warming up to the idea, but it does genuinely work. I highly recommend it. Okay, second one is the Five of Cups. Okay. Let me go ahead and pull the rest of the cards, because I think this is a message that goes through. All right, we've got the Six of Swords. Yes, it is. And then the Four of Swords. Okay. So the Five of Cups talks about depression. Okay. Unfortunately, when we're first in recovery and we're detoxing off of the things that we've been putting in our body, we're going to feel like crap. And that, when I had a similar experience when I was detaching and 12-stepping myself off of a particular person, because I was heavily trauma bonded with them. And it just didn't feel right. I was constantly obsessing about them. I was thinking about what they were doing and what they thought of me, and, oh, did I make a mistake, and all of that stuff. It doesn't feel good. It really, really doesn't. But once you admit that you're powerless over them and they keep hurting you, even though you're trying to do the right thing, and then you turn inward and realize that you're losing yourself in that relationship, making that decision and having that understanding that you're powerless over them, is the best thing. And so your ego is going to rear its ugly head, and it's going to be like, no, go back to them, go. It's so scary out here by ourselves. And just know that everybody goes through that period of time to some degree. Some of them are lesser, some of them are pretty harsh. I, for one, was incredibly depressed, like to the point where I was laying in bed almost every day, all day long, for about 3-4 months. And I was devastated and humiliated and so embarrassed that I had gotten myself to that point. And, all I can tell you is that having walked through it and then finally reaching out and asking for the help that I needed, and to the people who could give it to me, because not everybody is there, not everybody has the best intentions for you, but and even within a 12-step program, you're going to have people who are people, and we're all flawed, every single one of us. I know I've made mistakes with sponsees, even though I had good intentions for them. And sometimes people just don't fit, and that's okay. But when you get into a 12-step program or a fellowship of that kind, similar fellowship, people genuinely want to see you sober. They genuinely want to see you getting the help that you need and are willing to help you because somebody helped them. That's the whole point, is passing it on, just paying it forward. And you too, at some point, will realize that, you don't get pulled out of hell and then just go about your merry way. You really do genuinely want to help other people who have been, or who are going through what you went through, so that you can help guide them out of it too. It's a very rewarding experience. But going back to the Five of Cups and the depression and the anxiety that you'll feel in the beginning, just know that the Six of Swords talks about how it does get better. It really, really does. You're going from rocky seas to calm waters. It takes time for that to happen. Give yourself that time. Give yourself the grace. You've done a lot of damage to your body. You've done a lot of damage to your brain, and that takes time to heal. It's not going to be a light switch. Some people, like myself, are fortunate enough to have a spiritual experience where we had the obsession to drink lifted out of us, but that does not mean that we did not go through the withdrawals and we did not have the, tiredness and the anxiety and all of that stuff. I just simply stopped craving it. And someday I'll post my story on here. I think that's probably going to be relatively soon because I think you guys have earned the right to hear where I was and what I did and how I got to where I was, my experience, strength, and hope. It was a wild one, a very wild one. And since we're woo on here, I can talk a little bit more freely than I can in a clubhouse. Then the Four of Swords. Rest. Sleep. Your body does the most healing when it's in the restful state. So it's okay to take a break and rest. I know that you're going to come up with 5 million excuses. I've got the kids to take care of. I've got the house to take care of. I got a job to go to. Yes, you do. They don't need you to do everything for them. The sad truth is they probably have been taking care of themselves when you were drinking and blacked out or drugging and doing Lord knows what. They figured it out already. And I know you feel guilty and you want to make everything better, but that's going to take time to earn their trust back. And perhaps it's time for them to pony up if they need to, if you've got a spouse who is completely dependent on you, let him or her turn around and help you out a little bit because you're trying to get sober. And if they are sabotaging your sobriety, it is 100% okay to walk away. I highly recommend sober living if that's the case. Getting out of the environment where you are used to drinking will help remove the triggers and help you stay sober longer. You do need to learn how to reintegrate, but that comes later. It's okay. It's okay to remove yourself from situations that are bad for you right now. All right. So, with that being said, I kind of wanted to talk about what addiction looks like as far as how can you tell if you're an alcoholic. Because we just talked about, hey, what does step 1 look like? But how do you come to that determination? So let's go ahead and ask Spirit. I know I can tell you and ramble on about my experience with that. Let me pull a few cards and see if Spirit wants me to do just that or if Spirit would like me to. All right. Death. And the Nine of Swords. And I'm being told one more. Queen of Swords. Okay. Now, death is a card about transformation. This is a very transformative process that you're going to be undergoing. You have to completely transform yourself. The ego has to die and you have to be born again. Ooh, I hate saying it that way, but it's really true. I just got over COVID. Leave me alone. Anyway, but more so the fact that some decks have the death card as like a butterfly, because the butterfly represents transformation as well. I've seen some with the phoenix. This particular card resonates so hard with me. When I was drinking actively, I had gotten down to, it was under 100 pounds. Like, I couldn't even eat anymore, and I didn't care to. All I wanted to do was drink. That is all I wanted to do. Drink and pass out, and just completely escape my life. I was miserable. I didn't want to be there, and I was too scared to leave and be on my own. And so, that's pretty much what I looked like. I was skeletal. I should call my rehab that I went to and see if they don't have my intake photo when I first went, because I look totally different now. but just you literally, a lot of newcomers who go into rehab look like death, literally. Um, the Nine of Swords, you're riddled with anxiety in your waking moments if you're not passed out. You're just anxious, trying to figure out where to get that next hit. You'll find yourself ruminating about it, like, how can I get it? How can I hide it? How can I, make sure that I have enough because the store doesn't sell it on Sundays. It's just it's your entire life is completely controlled and revolves around your drinking and using. Um, then the Queen of Swords. I'm trying to figure out where she goes in this because she is a woman who is very decisive. She's nurturing, but she doesn't take shit. So why is she here? Why is she here? Ah, okay. I've got the Ten of Wands. Okay. So you start seeing that you have a burden that's too much to bear. Because you can't control it. I know I'm an alcoholic. I've earned my seat in those rooms and that title. And it's not something I'm ashamed of anymore because it's just how my brain is right now. Just like I am a person who's on the autism spectrum, I'm a person with ADHD. I suffer from chronic severe depression and I have to see a doctor for those things. Likewise, my alcoholism and my addiction became too big of a cross to bear because I would find myself sitting there waiting, like counting down the minutes in the morning for when the grocery store would open up so that I could go buy beer to tide me over until the liquor store that sold the hard liquor would be open. It was really a sad moment in my life. And I really, I didn't know how to ask for help. I would Google search how to quit drinking and I looked at the taper down method. I tried everything to quit. And it wasn't until I got to this first step. And I really, really looked at, if you go to clubhouses for one of the anonymous meetings, they usually have the 12 steps on a big sign. And I was just sitting there in the back row and looking at that first step where it said, admitted that I was powerless over alcohol. And that my life had become completely unmanageable, which is this, the Ten of Wands. It was so unmanageable. I couldn't take it anymore and I didn't know what else to do, but I knew that was one thing that I could definitely admit. That life had gotten completely unmanageable and that I couldn't handle it anymore on my own. I'm trying to think of what else I used to do. I mean, I'm the type of drunk who would go to the Walmart because this was before COVID, because they were open 24 hours a day, and I would buy Listerine. Don't get an idea if you're drinking. It's horrible for you because it's poison. But that's what I did. We get to the point where we make some really, in the attempt to get alcohol in our system in some way, shape, or form, we will ingest bad things for us. And so what I can say is rock bottom is where you stop digging and you finally surrender to the fact that you do have a problem and you are powerless over it. That's when things change. Those first 3 steps are important ones, but the very first step is the one that we have to really, really, truly understand from all perspectives and take with perfection. I have to admit to myself every single day, every single waking moment, that I cannot afford a drink because once I start with that first drink, I cannot stop. Once I fill a prescription for Adderall and I take that first pill, I cannot stop. That is my defining factor. And I've proven that to myself time and time and time again. It's awful. It's a horrible way to live for yourself. It is a horrible thing to do to your friends and family. It's a nasty thing to do to your work, but you can always get new work. But what we do to our kids, and then think we lie to ourselves and say that we're not affecting anyone else, when in reality we're devastating them. And that was the key, was understanding that my attachment to a substance was ruining not just my life, but the lives of those around me. Okay. I hope that clarifies what being an alcoholic looks like. It's, you're shaken in the morning and you wake up and you can't remember anything from the night before. But it's beyond that. But that's just my experience. And if you go to a clubhouse, to a newcomer meeting, you'll hear many, many stories of many, many different experiences that people have gone through. I highly encourage it. Maybe one of them will resonate with you and you'll be able to identify somebody who might be a potential sponsor for you so you can get off this wagon. It's not a wagon you want to be on. They always say, I fell off the wagon. When you have a slip, I prefer to walk in the grass. Take it slow. Enjoy the scenery. It's a lot more serene that way. I'm going to go ahead and pull an oracle card from the Oracle of these 7 energies really quick to close out before I leave you. And by the way, disclaimer, I am not a replacement for a sponsor. Unless you're working with me on a sponsorship level, which I do work with women and men who are on the LGBTQ letter wagon. That wagon is an okay wagon to be on. I actually really like that wagon. I'm an ally. But man, you have the right to love who you want. Especially when it's you. Okay. Oh, look, we got one that popped out. All right. The Uncharted Sea. It does definitely feel like uncharted waters when we're going into recovery, but I promise you many people have been there before. And I will say that if it were not for brave people forging forward into uncharted waters, we would never have discovered North America, even though he was kind of a dick. It takes being brave to discover new things, new aspects about the self. It's wonderful. All right, what number is that? That's number 46. So let's go ahead and read out of the book. This is really wonderful. Let me show you the box here. Boop. That's what it looks like, and it's from Colette Baron Reed. She's just a lovely artist. I really like her work. Okay, The Uncharted Sea, number 46. I'm 46. Synchronicities. I'll do a tarot reading on synchronicities as well in the near future because I've had a lot of people asking about that lately. And before I start to read, hey, if you have an idea of what you would like me to discuss, please leave it in the comments. Like and share and do all the YouTuber stuff. Because social media. Anyway. Your comfort zone is sometimes exactly that. A safe, familiar harbor you're finally coming to in yourself. You have a sense that you don't need more than what is available right where you've landed in life. Now, however, is not one of these times. Like the archetypical hero's journey, The universe is inviting you to step into uncharted waters. Something is stirring. Adventure is calling. You may want to resist this urge because it will involve leaving your comfort zone, but embarking on this journey is essential for your well-being. Marinate in that. Navigating the uncharted aspects of yourself means that you won't have a nap, or won't have a map. You should always have a nap. I worry about that being a Freudian slip about my day tomorrow. Because I'm like a big baby if I don't get a nap. Anyway, navigating the uncharted aspects of yourself means that you won't have a map because no one else has ever been here. On this journey, you cannot rely on the help you would typically expect from others who have gone before you. This new territory is yours to explore. You're invited to be a pioneer, a path maker, a magical cartographer who draws a map with your own life force as the ink. And what I'm hearing in that is the fact that, yes, you're going to have people who have gone through it and can help you with the steps, but at the end of the day, you have to do the work. This is the day to dive into novel experience and fully immerse yourself in the new. You don't know what the sea of possibility has in store for you, so stay curious and refrain from judgment or the need to label. Give yourself the time and freedom to be curious without the limitations and boundaries projected by your memories or expectations. You are in an amazing place right now, and you will never be the same for surveying these waters. It was the best decision I ever made. All right, friends and loved ones, this is where I leave you. If you're interested in a personal tarot reading, you can go to thedivinepathlc.com and schedule a reading with me or any one of the ladies, but I am the one who really does the 12-step tarot, so and I will leave a link in the description for you. But until next time, if no one has told you today, know that I love you.